So, hey everyone, thanks for joining us today for this webinar on the predictable cold outreach system. My name is Andy Cabasso, and I'm a co-founder at Postaga and Boxword. And today we're going to be talking about, uh, cold outreach and building a system so you can do repeated cold outreach at scale. So I always like to get things started by learning a little bit more about people in the audience. I'm going to drop a poll asking where you are joining from today. And now the poll is open. It's asking where you're joining from. Please feel free to fill that out. I like keeping this a bit interactive. So it's not just me talking over some slides. So I'll keep it open for just a few more seconds. If you haven't filled out the poll yet, please do so. Where are you joining from today? North or South America, Europe, Africa, Asia, Australia, Antarctica, or other? Maybe one of these days I'll have someone who is in international waters or something like that using their satellite connection to join this webinar. I don't know. We'll see. All right. Well, thanks everyone for filling that out. Let's see what we got here. About 59% from North America, 24% from Europe, and 18% from Asia. All right. Thanks for filling that out. Next up, let's talk real quick about who this person is giving you unsolicited advice here. My name is Andy Cabasso, and I'm a co-founder here at Postaga and Boxword. I manage a team that does cold outreach every day. I myself do cold outreach every day. Before this, I ran and then successfully sold a digital agency. And then before that, I was a lawyer, but I'm not practicing anymore. I don't say like ex-lawyer or anything like that because it makes me sound like I was disbarred, but I wasn't or anything like that. But anyway, you don't need that whole thing. That's just a bit about my background. So today, let's talk about, well, we're going to talk about this cold outreach system and what this entails. So the agenda for today, first, I'm going to talk about the system overall that we've built. I'm going to then break down the individual pieces of it. First, we're talking about initial setup with outreach. Then we'll be talking about the components of that, domain and email setup, deliverability, email templates, and then the ongoing aspects, prospecting, lead management, improvements to be made. And then at the very end, we're going to do a Q&A. So if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the Q&A section here, and I promise you that we will get to them. So another question, I want to open a poll. Are you doing any cold outreach right now? I'm going to open this up now. And so the options are yes, a lot, like every week, yes, a little, every once in a while, not now, but I have in the past, or no, never have. So I'll leave this open for just a few more seconds, and then I just want to know about everyone's experience level here, and then we will close this out and talk about our system here. All right, and I'm going to close this out in 3, 2, 1, and it is closed. So we've got 35% say every week, 25% every once in a while, and 40% never have. All right, so that's good to know. I think there's going to be something for everyone in this, whether you're experienced or brand new. I think you're going to learn some things about cold outreach. So let's talk about the system. So I'm going to share a potentially scary looking diagram here, but just know that this is kind of like an overview of everything. I'm not going to fixate on it too much, but it is just kind of like the system that we build, that we use every day for clients that we work with, and we use it for ourselves also. So the text is going to be really tiny here, but there are just kind of different components to it. On the left side is really like our initial setup stuff, the like getting to know what we're doing outreach for, creating email templates, the technical setup. And then on the right is more of the ongoing stuff, the prospecting, the outreach, and the follow-up. So these are like the the pieces of the puzzle here. And we're going to now talk about each one of those. So we're going to talk about domain and email setup. We're going to talk about email warmup. We're going to talk about email templates, the platform setup, and then the ongoing aspects of prospecting, email verification, outreach, deliverability, lead qualification, all that fun stuff. One person, it seems like, saying that my voice got really quiet. If it having an issue, maybe refresh your screen and it might improve that. So let's talk about the aspects of initial setup for getting ready for outreach. And first, we're going to talk about domains and emails. So there are a few different opinions on these, not all wrong, but I guess a question that I get pretty often is, if I'm just starting out and doing cold outreach, can I use my regular everyday business email address? And I strongly, well, that at the very least, I strongly recommend against. Options for you, what I would recommend is use something completely different, either an alternate domain or a subdomain. So my main email is, Andy at either postaga.com or boxford.com. But if I want to get an alternate domain to do outreach from, I might get Andy at boxford.co or at postaga.net or something like that. Or if I wanted to do a subdomain, it would be Andy at outreach.postaga.com or mail.postaga.com. The reason that we do this is to protect our main domain's reputation. In the event, worst case scenario, your email is getting flagged by the email service providers, and you're starting to see your emails land in people's spam folders. That can affect your main emails that go out every single day for regular business purposes, and that can really affect your business. So having separate domains or subdomains specifically for outreach is my recommendation. And one thing, another tip here is, if you like, a question I get is, well, if I get an alternate domain, well, what do I do when someone tries to visit that domain? Like, you've got postaga.co. What if someone visits that site? With most domain registrars where you buy the domains, you can set up so there are URL forwarding or redirects, so that if someone visits that domain, it gets automatically forwarded to your main regular business domain. Namecheap, Cloudflare, GoDaddy, they all have the ability to do that. And so I'd recommend that. So as I mentioned, you can use your main domain .com, .co, .net, getyourname.co.com, whatever, or a subdomain like m.outreach. Whatever. I know that some people are concerned that, well, if I use a subdomain, is it going to, and I get low deliverability, is it going to affect my main domain? And we've run tests on this ourselves, and we have a few colleagues that also make software in the deliverability space, and they've seen no issues at all with using a subdomain. So using a subdomain it'll be much more cost effective in that it's free to set up subdomains for email. Obviously, if you want to buy a new domain, it'll be $10 a year or something like that. Another question I get is, can I use an @gmail.com email? I get cold emails from Gmails or Outlooks, and one thing that people like is, well, those are free. But I don't recommend those. Don't use @Gmail or Outlook, because it's not a professional look. Put yourselves in the shoes of the person who receives that email from you. It just doesn't look as good. It looks as professional, and it's going to look like it's coming from a spammer or something like that. So I just don't recommend that. So for email setup, there are a number of different providers you can use for setting up email addresses for cold email. You can use Google Workspace, Office 365, or Zoho, or really any other provider as well. I get questions about like, well, what do you recommend? So one thing is we've seen, well, we see better deliverability overall between the same email providers. So Google Workspace to other Google Workspace emails, Office 365 to other Office 365, and other Zohos to other Zohos. And generally more business users are using Office 365. So if you had to choose and want like the best deliverability, I'd probably recommend Office 365. In addition, like they're not, the other options like Google or Zoho are not bad, but they just overall see like slightly lower open rates and reply rates. So kind of maybe want to like factor that into your kind of calculus, because if you're buying and setting up email addresses with Google or Office, those can be between like $6 to $12 a month per email address. Zoho, I know, is $12 a year for the email. Difference in deliverability, as I mentioned, they're all pretty comparable, but Office 365 tends to be a bit better in terms of deliverability, just because it's when you're sending from Office to other Office mailboxes, it'll get better deliverability and more business, like for B2B outreach, gets that. Two quick questions. Or is the session recording? Yes, it's recording. We will send out the copy of the recording tomorrow. And is this live? Yes, this is live. So how many email addresses should you use for outreach? You can use multiple email addresses at multiple domains. In generally, as a rule of thumb, I'd recommend 2 to 3 email addresses per domain, and then you can have multiple domains depending on what kind of like volume you're looking to send. So doing a little bit of math here, we see like the best results of open rates and deliverability at sending 30 to 50 emails per day per email address. Now, you may see that like Google or Outlook say that they can send 200 emails a day, 300 emails a day, 500 emails a day, something like that. And while that's technically true, for one, if you are sending 200 emails a day or 300 emails a day with Gmail or Outlook, you're more likely that those providers are going to flag you for suspicious sending patterns and suspend the email address, or it could see just lower deliverability. And so the sweet spot is, I think, 30 to 50 emails per day per email address. And so if you're thinking, all right, I've got a list of 1 million contacts or something like that, and I want to send, I don't know, emails to 1,000 a month or 10,000 a month, how many emails and domains should I set up? Well, there are typically like 20 business working days in a month, Monday to Friday, not including weekends. You shouldn't be sending emails out on weekends. And so 30 to 50 times 20 is between 600 to 1,000 emails per month sending per email address. So if that's the case, let's work backwards and like do our math. If we want to send 6,000 emails a month, we might need up to 10 email addresses that we're using. And of those 10 emails, they could be at 3 or 4 different domains. So that is how I recommend like thinking about it. If you have like a goal for volume, work backwards to try to figure out like, all right, well, how many email addresses do I need? And another thing, best practice is have backup emails and backup domains, because so we're going to talk a little bit about deliverability and warm up in a second, but let's say that you're sending out your emails and sending out the emails, and then one day your email either gets suspended or you're seeing that the open rates are plummeting. And you're right, you're thinking, all right, well, I'm landing in spam folders and I need to reach my contacts. What do I do here? Now, like, you can work on, like email warm up to repair that email address to get it better deliverability. And that can take a little while, but in the short term, you still need to be emailing these contacts because you have a cadence of, I want to send this many emails per month and reaching this many inboxes to get this many appointments or leads or what have you. And if you lose an email address and you lose, let's say, 1/5 or 1/6 of your sending power, you're going to be out that. So if you have backup email addresses that are ready to go and warmed up, you can swap those in if you're seeing issues with an email address. So speaking of, let's talk about email deliverability and warm up. So email deliverability is the rate at which your emails are making it to the inbox versus bouncing or getting rejected or hitting the spam folder. Low deliverability means that your emails are not reaching people's main inboxes and all your efforts, that prospecting, finding contacts and pitching them are getting wasted. There are a few different ways that you can improve your email deliverability. One of them is in setup with authentication. One is email warm-up. And then another is making sure your contacts are verified so you can reduce bounces. And then another is varying your email text with something like spin tax. And then there's also just some sending habits and things that you can do of like watching your numbers. We already talked about the numbers of like how many emails to send per day and things like that, but we'll talk about the other pieces now. So authentication, it's a little bit technical here, but basically it requires editing your DNS records. Like whenever you set up a new domain with Outlook or Zoho or Gmail, it's going to ask you to edit your DNS records. Like for example, to add MX records, which are mail records, which will point to Gmail servers so that you can send and receive email with Gmail. Other things are like the SPF records, the DKIM records, and those are going to be unique to your email provider. And then there is DMARC, which is not specific to an email provider. There are DMARC generators freely available out there on the internet. Here's one. And just to kind of show you what the SPF records like look like, for example, like Gmail's SPF record, this is going to be the same for anyone's domain which is sending through Google Workspace or Gmail. Zoho's looks like this. These are SPF records or TXT records, and Outlook's looks something like this. And this SPF record helps authenticate to tell all the email servers that emails coming from me at our Gmail server are legitimate. Another thing is the DKIM record, which is like a secret record that is generated by your provider. And it looks like this big mess kind of thing. And then DMARC is another record that helps with authentication and basically ensuring that no one else can spoof your email address. Email warm-up. The process of email warm-up is basically not sending a lot of emails right away, but slowly increasing the amount of emails that you're sending over time, which looks more natural to email servers because let's say Andy at Postaga.co just started a brand new job at Postaga.co. He's not going to immediately start sending 50 emails a day and emails that look oddly similar to each other. That's going to look suspicious. And so for deliverability purposes, we want to slowly increase the amount of emails that we're sending over time, generally over like a 4-week period, and also making sure that these emails are getting replies to them. There are ways that you can do this manually, or you can do it automatically. As far as timeline goes, you can do it for, I see some people do it like 2 weeks, some people do it for 6 weeks or 8 weeks. I find that 4 weeks is generally good. For software that does it, we use and we recommend Boxword, which basically how it works, you'll connect your email address and set up a warm-up algorithm. We have an automatic one that's good for brand new emails, and then it will email other inboxes in the Boxword network and automatically get replies from other email inboxes in the Boxword network and increase the volume of sending over a few week period. And it's going to make sure that you're reaching these other contacts inboxes and not the spam folder. And then when you're ready to start sending cold emails, it's going to be much higher likelihood that your emails are landing in people's main inboxes and not their spam folders. So that's the basics of email warmup and what it does. Next, I want to talk about email templates and like the pitches for what we're going to say to people. So generally, like one thing I like to start with from like a frame is like start from the endpoint. Like, what is your goal? What are you hoping to get from this outreach? And I know it might sound a little bit basic here, but the reason I want us to like think about this is I want us to think about what, like, are you looking to try to get someone who's receiving your email to sign up for your service or to book a meeting or just gauge if they're interested? And like the reason I'm talking about this is because like you're not going to make the sale usually from the first email. The email is meant to start a conversation, build a relationship, and not complete this transaction. Like think about this from the recipient's perspective. If they've never heard of you before, they don't have any trust going in that you are going to be the right service or solution for them. So think about what benefit you can offer them, and let's think about where we want to get from like this email. We want to get them to, we want to see like, is this a problem that they have that you're trying that you can solve? Or if it's link building oriented, are you providing some sort of value for them that helps make their life easier and better? And so whatever kind of outreach you're doing for whatever goal, whether it's link building, PR or sales, be thinking about that. Another thing I recommend, and now with I think ChatGPT can kind of help with this, is if it's a strength of yours and you can like be funny, but also like know your strength. So like an example, like I sometimes throw like dad jokes in my pitch copy. In part, sometimes it like throws people off because, you know, if you're the recipient, if you're the person getting a cold email, you probably get cold emails every day. You could get, some people get hundreds each week, especially for people who are like trying to like build links for an authoritative blogger website. And if you have an email that kind of like disrupts what their expectations are in their normal flow, they might be more likely to stop and pay attention. And so like that, taking like a different approach than the typical, hey, I wanted to see if you have this problem, let me know if you're interested. Taking an approach of just trying to get them to stop in their tracks, being like, wait, what is this? This is a terrible, like, even if it's a terrible joke, not like an offensive joke, but just like a cringy, groany dad joke sort of thing, it'll get the person to stop and pay attention. Another thing is, as I mentioned before, you're not trying to make the sale in the first email. So being shorter rather than longer tends to do better. Don't include any attachments, minimize links or images. These two things are here because it's just better for deliverability. Again, like putting yourself in the perspective of the recipient. If I get a cold email from someone that has an attachment, there's no way I'm opening that attachment. It could be a virus. And links and images and things like that, like rich text that could that also can contribute to lower deliverability. In my emails, I want to have generally one call to action or one ask, like then different types of asks. Like, for example, there's the specific ask: can we meet tomorrow at 12 p.m.? Or do you have time to meet this week? Or are you interested in learning more? And we have some studies that show that interest-based calls to action are the most effective. So, like if I'm trying to pitch selling something, like I want to first see if we're a good fit here. So, are you interested? Tends to work better than a more aggressive approach of, can we meet at 12 p.m. tomorrow? Well, for one, we don't know that they're interested, and so back off maybe for a second. But if they are interested and like this time doesn't work, then like I just wouldn't like. I personally just wouldn't recommend that kind of approach. And so also, after you've drafted an email, read it back, pretend that this email has come to your inbox and that you are the type of person who gets unsolicited emails every day. Would you respond to it or would you ignore it? I might recommend also having a colleague read it and giving you their feedback on it and give you an outside perspective of, is this a good pitch? Other things about pitching. Your email should have multiple emails in the series. In particular, depending on what we're doing outreach for, it could be 5 to 10 emails for sales lead generation. Or if it's something else like link building or PR, I'd recommend between 3 to 5 emails, and like space them out, like usually like a week or so apart. If you're doing like a long cadence of, let's say you have a 10 email sequence, you might want to have like some of the emails send like a month apart. If you've sent like 4 emails 4 weeks apart and you're not getting any responses, maybe the timing is bad. So then let's push back another month and then the follow-up emails to that after that. Sending in the morning, generally more effective than in the afternoon as far as getting replies go. Always A/B test your emails in sequences just so that you can see what is getting the best open rates, what's getting the best response rates. Next thing I want to share is like, for part of an infographic we put together, how important are follow-up emails to getting replies. This just goes to show that having follow-ups is important because even email 7 or 8 in a sequence can get a response. So next, before we talk about specific pitches in email, like templates and things like that for different areas, I want to know kind of from everybody, what are you looking to do outreach for? So let me open this poll here. So the question is, what are you most interested in doing outreach for? And the options are link building, lead generation, PR, or other. And if other is your response, I'm curious what that entails. Please drop me a chat in the chat here. All right, we'll give this a few more seconds here. The poll is now open. You should see the poll on your screen. And let's give it 3 more seconds. 3, 2, 1, and we are closed. And so results here, 81% lead gen, 8% link building, 8% other, and 4% PR. All right, good to know. So first we'll talk about link building. Link building outreach can entail different things to different people, but it can be things like offering a guest post to another website, reaching out for or requesting a link, whether it's like the skyscraper technique or resource page outreach or broken link building, or requesting link exchanges, link swaps, or potentially like sponsorships, or affiliate outreach, and things like that. So as far as pitching goes, specifically for getting links, one like thing that I say like makes the biggest impact and difference is like making sure that you have something worth linking to. Link like I talk about like linkable assets, like things like uh, studies or data or like lead magnet kind of content, infographics, like calculators, things that people might want to like embed on their page or cite if it's a study or something like that. That tends to uh, go over better. And like being someone who sent plenty of outreach emails and also receives a lot of outreach emails for like link building, I often get emails from people saying like, "Hey, I've got this article that would be a good fit for you to link to from my article." And a lot of people with websites get these requests every day, and like that's like good and all. Like your article may be great, but it's going to take me time and effort to read your article, see if it would be a good fit, or if you're taking the stance of, "Hey, my study that I published is newer and better than the one that you linked to." Well, it's still going to take me effort to evaluate it and review it. But if you're giving me something like an infographic and saying, "Hey, you have this article and I have this infographic that uh, has some studies and data you can use to further bolster your article," you can feel free to include that infographic as long as you link back to my site. Well, now I've got like something more interesting to add to my content here. Um, so one thing I'm curious about is like if you are uh if you are doing link building outreach, I'm curious what you are getting kind of like the best results from. And you don't have to answer this. I'm just curious if if you're doing if you're doing cold outreach, are any of these uh yeah working well for you for getting links. um I'll keep this open for a few more seconds here, and uh then we'll shut it down. All right. Right in 3, 2, 1. So this looks like it was not applicable to most people, but um it looked like so guest posting was kind of the winner, and then resource page, link swap, sponsorships, and podcasts uh, came in next. All right, thanks for sharing that. So let's talk about lead generation now. So with lead generation, there's massive upside potential if you get it right, if you have the workflow right, if you're doing right with the prospecting and the pitch. Um, but it can be crowded. There can be many competitors in the space, and there are a lot of people who do this poorly. And so uh, people get pitched by cold emails every single day and inundate people's inboxes with just bad pitches. And I'm sure if you have a business and been around long enough, you're getting pitches of, "Dear sir, I would love to offer you outsourced IT services or mobile web development services," or something like that. And that stuff just creates a lot of noise and frustration for people because it's crowding their inbox and it's not relevant. um, so if you are reaching out to someone cold, you really need to stand out in your recipients' inboxes here. Um, so lead generation outreach can be a bit of a numbers game, but the more targeted and the more personalized, the better results you can get. If you're doing lead generation outreach in-house, in general, I recommend that like this should be part of someone's specific role and that not just being done casually, because like if this is a system that you want to build, that you want to be able to consistently generate leads, you need to be consistently prospecting, consistently evaluating and reviewing your campaigns, you know, finding and qualifying new leads and reaching out to them and building them into your campaigns. And a unique pitch and value prop is absolutely a must. There are plenty of templates that you could find online that other people use. Or there's also like, you could also ask like Chat GPT. And I've looked into it myself for like coming up with like inspiration. As of now, I would not recommend Chat GPT in particular, because every single cold email I've tried to generate with Chat GPT always starts with the first sentence of, "I hope this email finds you well." And if that's not just a dead giveaway of how bad that is, I don't know what is. No email has ever found me well, and no email from a stranger has ever found anyone well. Um, so, if you're tinkering with ChatGPT, take it with a grain of salt, because it's working with what it's fed and with what it has, been able to see. But for your audience, you should really know what their unique pain points are, and how you can solve for that problem. And it with cold emailing, it might not be that everybody in your audience has the problem right now, but either they may eventually, and may keep you in mind if your pitch is relevant to them and demonstrates your expertise and uniqueness here, or the timing is perfectly right, and you have a pitch that stands out to them, and you got a conversation going. For outreach with PR, I guess there are a few different strategies. There's podcast guesting, basically going on podcasts to talk to their audiences about an educational topic and getting in front of them and increasing your brand awareness. And the other is getting blogs to do reviews or write-ups of your products. A lot of these reviewers are like affiliate marketers. So if you're pitching to them, have something to offer for them, like have an affiliate program that can help. And as for podcast guesting, that's one area where I've had probably the highest like win rate and success rate with, because the angle that I take is, hey, I see that your podcast about whatever the topic is, let's say marketing, um, had a really great episode the other day about this specific topic with this particular guest. I want to see if you're looking for guests. If so, I would love to be a guest and talk about one of these specific topics that's relevant to your audience. And here is why I would be a great guest. And for podcast hosts that are constantly looking for new guests and new content, if you basically give them an episode that's relevant for them, you're making it so easy for them just to say yes. So next, let's talk about like the ongoing aspects here of outreach. Well, there's prospecting. How are we going to get leads consistently? With different types of outreach, it can be a numbers game, and so you need leads, and some different outreach types may get you like a 1 to 2% response rate. So I'm going to talk real quick about like different types of outreach and different tools to use. So for like link building outreach, Postaga has its own built-in opportunity finder to find like resource pages, to find blogs that are relevant, as well as other tools like Ahrefs or SEMrush, which are good for like broken link finding. For sales leads at volumes, there are a lot of different tools. For one, there's Postaga, which is good for more location oriented, like brick and mortar businesses. There are other like scrapers like Hexamatic. And there are like LinkedIn tools that can like scrape LinkedIn, or other databases like LeadFuse. And I want to talk a little bit more about, like, let's say that you've found leads using a database, what to do after that. And for PR-oriented leads, a few sources are Postaga, Spark Toro is another one, and LinkedIn. No matter what, though, except for Postaga, which automatically verifies the email addresses of the contacts that it's sending to, if you're getting contacts from another database, you need to verify the emails that you're finding, because if the emails bounce, and I've used a lot of different databases, and I've seen some, like as many as like 40% of the email addresses they gave me bounced. And that is really, really bad. Really, like 10%, or if 10% or more of your emails bounce, that's going to look really, really suspicious to the email service providers, because most people emailing on a day-to-day basis aren't seeing 10% of their emails to other contacts bounce. And it's going to be more likely that your emails are going to end up going to spam folders then. So verifying that your contact emails are legit is super important. Like I mentioned, Postaga has a built-in verifier. And so whether you're using Postaga for finding contacts and prospecting, or if you're just importing emails that you got from another database, Postaga can verify those emails too. For getting more leads, I recommend building a repeatable system and process. Like prospecting, part of it can be a dedicated role if you're looking to scale it and really, really scale it. So like either like having either a VA or a team member's job being to find new leads, so that you can consistently have these contacts that you're going to be reaching out to, and that the well isn't drying up. I've seen like different approaches with it. Some people like basically prospecting through like different industries and stuff like that. Others taking a very, very hyper specific targeted approach, where like a person who is responsible for prospecting is going to uniquely qualify each contact that they're reaching out to. And that obviously takes a bit more time, but it can yield better results. Other things that you will probably need to collect and be thinking about or mentioning in your pitch, the contact's first name in particular, their company name. You might want to include the company name in the subject line or in the body of the email to demonstrate that you know who this person is and what company they are with, and so that you can demonstrate that you have something relevant to offer them. And for if you're doing outreach for link building, you want to know what the URL is of their content that is relevant to what your pitch is. For podcasts, having episode topic ideas relevant to their podcast is important here. And something that can be effective is having something more specific or personal, like I guess I'm talking about personalization specific to the contact of the company that shows that you've done your research. Like, for example, you might have an introduction line, like the first sentence of your email. Hey, I saw that you just won an Inc. or made the Inc. 5000 list. Congratulations. Something like that, that shows that you have done more effort to ensure that you're reaching out to the right person and company, as opposed to just quickly building a list and reaching out to the whole list. You know, the more you can demonstrate that you know who you're reaching out to, the higher likelihood you get a response. I mentioned email verification. So, more bounces can affect your deliverability. Email verification can ensure that your recipient's emails are valid. Like I mentioned before, certain databases have very high fail or bounce rates. Information from databases in particular goes out of date. People change jobs, companies shut down. And if you email joe@company.com because they were on that list, Joe might not be at that company anymore. And so we want to, before we reach out to them, we want to make sure that that email address is working and that we're going to reach a human being. So there are a few different types of responses you get using email verification tools, whether it's third-party tools or Postaga. There's the rejection, which you should never email a rejected email. Verified, which means with almost 100% certainty that that email will reach that contact. Or there's also catch-all. And catch-all is basically risky. Catch-all means that it can't neither confirm nor deny that this email address is working, because when the verification tool is pinging the other person's email servers, it's not outright rejecting, saying that this is not a working email. But my best practice tip is only email verified email addresses. Even though you're going to miss out on maybe some of these catch-all emails would work, if you avoid emailing them, you'll be better off for long-term health for your email and domain. Other thing is varying your email tags and using like spin tags. Basically, if your emails all look identical, it's going to look suspicious to email providers, and it can increase likelihood your emails end up in junk folders. So using like spin tags as an example, it's spin tags or spun text. Basically, you can alternate between one of a few different random phrases in a section. So like in the greeting section of an email, I might say, instead of like dear sir or dear name, hello, hi, or aloha. Or I've worked with a lot of SaaS, either in swap between founders, owners, or managers. Basically, different ways. I'll just like look at synonyms for the different things, words like I want to use, and this kind of varying it up makes the emails more unique. Next up, email sending habits. The question I get from people who are new to outreach is, can I use a tool like MailChimp? Which one, I would absolutely never recommend a tool like MailChimp. It's not meant for cold outreach. It's only meant for people who have opted into your list. And the way that it sends is not, it looks to other email service providers that it's not a one-to-one email. It looks like it's an automated promotional email. Like best case, it'll go to the promotional tab of the recipient. Worst case, it'll go to junk. So a tool like Postaga staggers the email send so it looks more natural. Instead of sending 100, or like let's say instead of sending the 50 emails a day at once, it staggers the emails at a randomized interval to make it look more natural and make sure we reach those people's inboxes. Like I mentioned before, don't send too many emails a day. 30 to 50 is kind of the sweet spot. And 30 to 40, you'll get like the best deliverability results. Next thing, of watching your numbers. As far as like deliverability goes, like 95% deliverability or above is good. If you're seeing bounce rates that are higher or deliverability rates that are lower, then your emails might be going to spam, or just you're having a lot of recipients that are just bad email addresses. So as far as benchmarks go, what we see is like the average open rate across all outreach campaigns is around 40%. Like I've seen some people with 60 to 80%, depending on how well targeted their campaigns are and how specific they are with their outreach. But if you're seeing lower than 40%, especially if you're seeing lower than 30%, it's really, really likely there is a deliverability issue here. At which case I would probably swap out some of the email addresses and kind of reevaluate the campaigns. Ongoing for lead management. So my question to you is, what do you think has the highest average response rate with kind of different categories of outreach? And the poll is now open, and I will leave this open for 30 seconds Nice to throw in these polls so I can take a sip of tea real quick. All right. And I'm going to close this up in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. And let's see what we got. So link building at 32%, lead generation at 41%, and PR at 27%. So interesting. So from across the board, like one study that we read said the average response rate is between 7 to 17%. I think that is particularly high, and that doesn't seem really in line with kind of like what we've seen. But basically, what it comes down to is it says 7% if there's no personalization, and 17% if there is personalization. Another study says 1 to 5%. But here's what we've seen generally: sales outreach and lead gen gets like the lowest response rate on average, between 1 to 5%. And what differentiates the 1% versus the 5%? It can be a combination of things ranging from the quality of your prospecting to your pitch to your email deliverability. There can be a lot of factors here. And so if you're seeing like a low response rate, there are things that we're going to want to test and work with to see what we can do to improve that. Link building, we've seen generally a better response rate, between 4 to 10% getting replies. But PR, typically we're seeing with a much higher response rate, between 7.5 to 15%. The more targeted it is, the more effective it is. And so factors for this, as I mentioned before, deliverability. Are you emails reaching inboxes? If you're landing in spam folders, that's going to affect your response rate. And you can tell, if nothing else, what your deliverability is looking like based on your open rate. If your open rate is 50%, then your deliverability is good, and that's not the issue. But if your open rate is 20%, then there is a problem here. And even with like a generic blah subject line, you should still probably see an open rate of around 40%. And if you're seeing, like I said, like 20% open rate, it's not the subject line, it is your deliverability. Another factor here is prospecting. So are the contacts that you're reaching out to relevant to your pitch? As far as the pitch goes, is your pitch good? Or if you're getting a good open rate but not getting responses, it's either due to your prospecting or your pitch. And is your pitch personalized enough or relevant to them? That's kind of up to figure out with your kind of campaign there. So here's quickly some responses generally that we see from outreach. People either say to you, tell me more, no thanks, unsubscribe, or let me loop someone else in. These are like the typical like responses that we see, in particular, like often for like from lead generation. And so what I would recommend as far as like preparing for responses is have like canned replies saved and ready to go based on the different scenarios and responses that you'll get, and it'll make your process easier. Common responses we see for link building: I'll link to you if you link to me, or pay me money, or I can't give you X, but you can write a guest post. And so whether you're open to that, that's up to you. Other responses that we see for like sales oriented lead gen: follow up with me after this particular date, or you should talk to this particular person that is either looped in or it just gives you their email. And another common thing is, what do you do? Even after you've had your email where you explain what you do, sometimes you get that. And then some people that are more standoffish might say, I don't want to get on a sales call with you, but do you have any other materials that you can share? And then the big win response of, let's have a call. Common responses for PR oriented outreach: here's our scheduling link. Do you have an affiliate program? Let's talk about maybe some co-marketing. Pay me, or give me the content that you want us to promote, or try again next month. And so preparing for leads, I'd recommend having a calendaring app, whether it's SavvyCal or Calendly or anything like that. For link building or PR, I'd create a separate like Google Doc or swipe file something where you have all the materials ready to go if someone expresses interest. And using a CRM to keep track of all of these is super important, so nothing falls through the cracks. The last aspect I want to talk about before we get to the Q&A is how to improve your campaigns on an ongoing basis, because they're not going to be perfect on day one. You may not get good open rates, you may not get good response rates, or you may run into issues with deliverability. So first, watching your numbers, seeing what your open rates are on an ongoing basis, because your open rates might be high to begin with and then over time drop. And then you might need to swap out your poor performing email addresses to improve your deliverability. A/B test your email templates to see which get better responses. And in particular, you're going to need to send probably thousands of emails before you know whether this particular template is the most effective one. Because if you're getting like a 1% response rate, it's going to take a good amount of responses before you know that this email is definitely better performing than another one. Hyper personalization, basically what I mentioned before about being specific for each contact, can help you get better results. And trying different sources and databases for prospecting can also be helpful there. So next steps before we get to Q&A. If you have any questions about doing outreach, we're always here to help if you want to brainstorm ideas. We each Friday at 12 p.m. Eastern, we usually offer office hours where you can ask any questions about outreach or the Postaga platform or anything like that. And lastly, if you don't have if you just don't have the time yourself to do outreach, we offer a done for you outreach service. And what that entails is basically we do all of this on your behalf. We set up the email templates, prospecting and outreach and such. And we can do it for a variety of different campaign like types, whether your goals are to build links or generate leads or get PR. So last thing before we get to Q&A, I'm just going to open a poll real quick. Do you want us to follow up with you after this webinar? No matter what, we are going to share the copy of the slot of the recording. So you will get that no matter what. But just want to open this poll to see if you want us to just to reach out to you after this webinar is over. And then we'll do some Q&A. All right. And I'll end that poll. Thanks so much. And next up, Q&A. I've got a bunch of questions here, and I'll get through as many as I can. First thing is, actually, and also real quick, if you have to jump off, thank you so much for joining. This has been a lot of fun. I got a bunch of great questions, and I'm going to answer them now. And we will also be sending the recording to you within 24 hours. That's another question. I got a bunch. So we'll be sending that out tomorrow, and I'll get to some of these Q&A now. What's the best option? Should I use a subdomain or a fresh domain? What's the best option? Honestly, either works. I wish I had like a study, or maybe I should put one together, of just all else equals using a subdomain versus a fresh domain. One thing with a fresh domain, though, is you should not start sending any cold outreach with a fresh domain immediately, because there are some spam lists out there that automatically put your email on or your domain on a spam list for like the first 3 days or the first 5 days that your domain is registered, because it's a common tactic that people register new domains and start doing outreach from those. And so a lot of different like service providers subscribe to these block lists, basically. And if you start sending outreach from a fresh domain right away, I can almost guarantee you that you're going to see a very high number of them going to spam. Let's see. Another question is, does Postaga have any tools to assist with hyper personalization? So Postaga does have pieces to it where it can basically analyze like the contacts domain, and you can like pull snippets from that if you want to mention or refer to something like that. Um, like, and there are other aspects that you can like personalize for as well. Like you can create in your outreach different merge variables that are either related to each individual contact or like your outreach campaign as a whole. And like an example of that is, let's say I've got an email template for podcasts, and I'm reaching out to 10 podcasts that are related to marketing. I might want to send all of them the same podcast episode pitch ideas, but at the same time, I also want to have personalization for each ones of the podcast hosts and their names and things like that. So I can use merge fields that are unique for all the contacts in the campaign, as well as each contact individually. Will we get access to the slide deck from Cassandra? Yes, we will share that as well. How do you track who you've already reached out to across the emails, including following up? Postaga does have that built in. So when you are building a list, it'll let you know, like flagging these contacts have been reached out to already. So you can, if you choose, reach out to them or not. And last two questions here. From Alicia, what's the best way to prepare a list for all potential customers using less variable names, surnames? So no matter what, your list should be cleaned with some sort of tool for email verification, whether it's Postaga or anything else. Ideally, you have, like, based on whatever your campaign is, you have the right variables, whether it's like first name, company name, or things like that. And last question I'm going to get to before I wrap it up here is, can I use a regular SMTP from your hosting provider? Yes, you can. So one thing though is, you may, like, if you like have like HostGator or Bluehost or something like that, and I've been tinkering with this a little bit because I was thinking, if I can get a Bluehost account for like, I don't know, $9 or $10 a month, and I can have unlimited domains and unlimited inboxes and things like that. But even if I spin up 20 emails at 20 domains at a fraction of the price of what it would be with Zoho or Gmail or anything like that, it might see lower just deliverability. And I have seen that a little bit, where it is getting lower open rates than emails from from like Zoho or Gmail or Outlook. I'd say, as far as like email service providers go, SMTP probably has the lowest open rates compared to the other providers for cold emails. And that is going to, I know we're a few minutes past the hour, so that's going to wrap us up for now. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to email us. Email me, email us at support@postaga.com or support@boxword.com. Thank you all so much for joining. I will send out email with this recording tomorrow. And yeah, please feel free to let us know if you have any questions at all. Thanks so much. This is a lot of fun. And we'll catch you around.